This is Holding Left Edge with Christian and Simon.
Nice.
Sexual.
We're going.
We are back again. Here we go again.
Here we go. Good evening. Welcome to episode 4 of Holding Left Edge, the shooting podcast for the UK, with me, Simon, and him,
Christian.
Seamless. That worked, didn't it?
I did. That was all right.
We need a jingle, man. We need someone to introduce us. You know, like on like Jonathan Ross or something, they always have someone in the crowd who was like introducing people. Is it what's his name? The Irish chap, little Irish chap. Awkward moment.
I'm not sure.
There's a Saturday night programme and I guess on, and there's someone from
I don't watch TV, mate. I'm either watching stuff about shooting on YouTube, or I'm on Netflix or something.
Podcast people tell us, they'll put in the comments saying who he is, but there's a guy that gets introduced anyway. We need someone to introduce us. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Really good, thanks. Yeah, really good. Tonight we're covering something that
I thought you were going to start singing a song there, mate.
Break into Queen. Yeah, we're going to cover something that I personally wanted to cover for a long while because I'm contentious by nature. But I'm going to demonstrate to people in podcast land that are either listening to us or watching us, see, I'm learning, that I am capable of doing research. Now, Christian and I have been talking about doing a podcast about sponsorship and advertising within the shooting community, typically precision rifle, because it's what we know, for a good few years. We first started talking about it in 2001, didn't we, Christian?
We did.
After we watched a podcast. Do you remember what that podcast was called, Christian? You don't, do you? But I do, because I asked you last week to find the podcast for me and you didn't.
I didn't do my homework.
I went and found it myself. Like that. We watched a podcast from the shooting with the Lilies. You remember it now?
That's it, yeah. Michael and Kaylee Lilly, I want to say.
Where they interviewed Chris Gittings, the proof research team manager.
Okay.
In 2021. Remember that?
Well, I just remember I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time on YouTube videos, and everyone that I thought was a little bit interesting, I'd send them through to you, wouldn't I? Yeah.
For people in podcast land, I'm terrible. I don't get a chance to do anything like that. Christian's brilliant. He can soak it up like a sponge. So every now and again, Christian will say, "Oh, did you see that podcast?" And I'll go, "No." He'll go, "It was really good." And I'll say, "What was it about?" And he'll tell me in like 40 words what it was about, so I don't need to know it. I know how good the Morgan King podcast was about a 70-30 split with targets. I've never watched it. And this was one of them. And I did actually watch this one, and I found it fascinating. It was two prominent shooters, husband and wife in the States. Are they big NRL people over there? I think they are, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they started out in NRL, but yeah, they do all sorts of rifle shooting.
And they interviewed a prominent guy from the shooting community. And those who don't know Chris Gittings, I don't know what he's doing with himself now, but he was heavily involved in the proof research team. He was a sponsored shooter by definition, and he also had a background in sports management. So he knows industries and how things should work, and he gets it. It was a fascinating podcast. And immediately after watching it, listening to it, Christian and I were talking about it, and I said, I'd love to do that. The other reason is, from someone who begrudgingly goes on social media to keep current, I also come across people talking about sponsorship and advertising. And I think there are two things out there that are the big issues, and we could dispel these myths. One is, what is it? What is sponsorship within shooting for individuals? And B, one and B, A and B, 1 and 2. The second one being, what are these companies looking for? Now, we're very fortunate to be in a position where we can talk about this with some degree of knowledge. I won't say expertise or anything like that. The disclaimer here is that I'm an RFD. I also sponsor a shooting team, which involves supporting a number of individuals to different levels depending on what support they need. And facilitating shooting events for people to get them shooting and qualified. And I also work with a number of companies in the industry who support things that I'm doing going forward. So I get how the business side of it works. Christian, whichever way it's pointing on that. I mean, do you want to explain where you sit in the sponsorship world as an individual?
Yeah, so I mean, I started competition shooting in 2020, back in 2020, in between the first two COVID lockdowns. And it was in 2021 when we got involved, didn't we, Simon, in the Great Britain Precision Rifle Association. That's how we met. And funny story, as you said, you're a registered firearms dealer. I bought some Coltac Europe gear off you when I first started getting into competition shooting at the back end of 2020 in preparation for my first match. And then as it just happened,
get it out of the way. Go on.
And then, as it just happened, we ended up on the GBPRA executive committee together and started to know each other, became friends. And then obviously you were managing a precision rifle team at the time, Team Jackal. I was not in any way associated with any companies at the time.
I'm going to be rude now and interrupt, because what I was expecting you to do was put a little thing in saying that, and when I'm saying go on, I wasn't being rude. I was waiting for Christian to point out for the fourth time on a podcast that he didn't get any discount from me first time he bought something from me.
No, we've done that story.
I know, mate, but I was waiting for you to do it. I was going, go and get it out. People out there that think I'm Titan from Yorkshire. It's not true. I do good discount. That was just a long time ago. Far away. Sorry, pal. Go on, keep going.
But to be fair to you, mate, all I bought was like 20 quid's worth of stuff off you. So we got friendly, didn't we? And at the time, I was starting to get quite active on social media, sharing stories about when I was going out rabbit hunting and shooting competitions and going to the range and stuff. And obviously by that time, so I was using some of the stuff that you were stocking. And effectively, I was sort of doing a little bit of promotion, wasn't I? And you sort of said to me, Christian, I'd like you're interested in the sport, you're involved in organisation of the sport, organising the sport now through the GBPRA. Why don't you come and join the precision rifle team? Love to have you on board. And that's how I first got into precision rifle, into sort of being a supported, I wouldn't say sponsored, a supported.
Well, there's all different tiers to it, which we're going to talk about in detail later on. But yeah, I think supported is a great way to explain it in the context of what I think the bigger picture is.
And then obviously, just to round off my background, supported by Team Jackal, by Jackal Firearms. Then got some direct support from Boscobel Weapon Systems when they helped me out with some bipod accessories. And then later on, much to my delight, I was taken on by one of the major rifle manufacturers in the worldwide, Begara International,
who, as well as being one of the biggest T-shirt manufacturers in the UK, in the world,
they do make
also make rifles. Who'd have known?
They do make good T-shirts.
They do make a good T-shirt.
But I was taken on primarily by them because of the work that I was doing with Begara rifles out in the field, rabbit hunting and so on, and a little bit of competition at the time. And then that later developed into me joining their actual Begara International precision rifle team. So that was when I became what people think of as a sponsored precision rifle shooter.
For context, when you came into contact with Begara, you were already using a Begara. That's the key bit that we need to latch onto later on, because you were already using their product with no support, promoting it because one can only assume you were a fan of the product and it worked. And that was a natural transition from being someone in a customer using a product to being someone that the industry, for whatever reason, or the manufacturer for whatever reason, saw a benefit in formalising a relationship with you going forwards. And I think that's really important. We'll pause that bit for now and we'll latch onto that later on.
Yeah.
Anyone else that you supported by that you want to mention now before we move on to something else?
Yeah, so obviously Begara International. I've also just recently been taken on by Schmidt & Bender, the premium rifle scope optics manufacturer from Germany. which is a great honour, massive privilege. I also I've been supported with York Knives, local business, local company, that produce bushcraft and hunting knives. They help me out with the hunting knife, some other equipment for my stalking adventures. And then also Contessa Mounts, an Italian company who make rifle scope mounts and other items. And Kydex Customs UK, which are a manufacturer in the UK who make rifle belts, load carrying belts and Kydex pouches and magazine holsters and other things. And a company from Europe called Nylord, who make tripods,
makes everything, doesn't it? Everything.
They make quite a lot of mounting systems for rifles, yeah.
That wasn't an exercise of me trying to get you to forget someone that you needed to thank or say thank for support, only because I wanted to make another distinction in that. Now, what I'll say for the benefit of people in podcast land is we've got to respect the fact that Christian is in a rather awkward position in relation to this podcast. So there will be occasions when I say to him, I don't expect you to answer that. Christian is a very respectful and responsible person who has formal relationships with manufacturers for very good reason. And I think they've made a great choice in working with him. However, there may come occasions where Christian quite simply can't answer a question. If we were open up to the public and people were asking questions, it would be a free-for-all and people would want to know all the ins and outs and stuff, but it wouldn't benefit this. However, the one question I do want to ask is, and purely for context later on in the podcast, the Schmidt and Bender thing, you weren't using Schmidt and Bender at the time, were you?
No.
And I think that's really important because I'm going to talk about the journey of someone through sponsorship. And because we've got you here, it's ideal for me to use you as an example so that people out there can understand how the involvement there came from a slightly different trajectory in that you were, I'll say it because you're too modest, you were an established social media presence. You're an established sportsman within a sport with a reputation that goes with it and all those profile things that you get, type into Google, Christian Westcoff Precision Rifle, and you'll start to see who you are. That isn't something that was there when you were first got in a relationship with Bagara. So those two things came about for both very positive, good reasons, but in different ways. Am I right in saying that's the distinction between the two of them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been the relationships that I've built with various companies within the firearm sporting industry have definitely come about through different paths, and it's been an evolution of my profile.
Mm-hmm.
within those industry circles.
And I think that's interesting because we'll talk about the Lilies and what they spoke about in relation to what they spoke to Chris about and the things that jumped out from there. We'll drop back into that as we go through this, but it's an ideal opportunity for us to talk about that evolution because you mentioned before. I mean, you said that you're being supported. Now, I think it's worthwhile at this early juncture to point out to people in podcast land what I perceive to be the differences in levels. And then I'd be grateful for you to tell me if you think I'm a million miles off. I mean, first and foremost is what I would call support. I wouldn't even say supported shooter. I'd just say support. When someone's got some support from a manufacturer, be it a discount code, be it they got something discounted, and I can say this as both an importer and retailer, that I see a benefit sometimes in giving someone something because I can see an advertising bonus from it. And I might never deal with that person again. And so I see that entry level being, you get some support. I think the next one is brand ambassador for me, before you get to supported shooter, because a brand ambassador is someone that likes the product so much that they promote it everywhere they can. There may be some incentive that they get back. So I know that some people, I've never done it, but some people have this code where if you sell something, they get a kickback.
Yeah.
Some people put, like, if you put code ABC123 in, from a website, they get a kickback. So they're not actually getting a great deal from it, apart from being able to say I'm formally tied to a company from a social media point of view.
Yeah.
Which then takes us, and we can revisit all these, that takes us on to what I would then call a supported shooter, which is someone who gets formal support, might not be to the point where they're getting free stuff, but they're certainly getting things either at a discount or they're getting some other reward from it. Either people are sharing it on social media. So if I'm doing something and a big company's sharing that, I'm benefiting from that more formal relationship. I might be getting my ammunition at cost, and I think that's sort of the level that most people in the UK certainly will probably aspire to, or maybe at now. And then the next step is what I would class as the sponsored shooter. And for me, a sponsored shooter is someone that gets, first and foremost, gets stuff free. They're using products for free because there's advertising dividend for the manufacturer or the supplier, the importer, the retailer, whoever that person is that's giving it to them. That can include like free ammunition, free bits and bobs, sometimes some match fees. I mean, you heard about Chris Gittins, he went into this in detail, talking about how many people in the States are sponsored shooters. And for those people out there that didn't go and find this podcast, it's fascinating. He talks about America, which is a completely different arena to what we've got here, much more, dare I say it, professionalized precision rifle scene. And he talks about sponsored shooters and what they get. And then there's a thing that I will call, for the sake of completion, the full ride shooters. And these are shooters, and there's only a few of them in the States who are cash money paid, who are arguably not having to do a day job because the industry supports them so well that they don't have to, that shooting is their job. Either because they haven't got a lot of outgoings, you know, if you're wealthy already, you've not got a mortgage, it's easy to be supplemented. We saw this in America. In France firsthand, if you recall. I remember speaking to family members from American shooters and saying, my word, it's great you're over here. And they're like, yeah, X and Y just paid for it. Whole family, flights, accommodation, beer, food, everything paid for. And these people have gone out there on a full ride.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the higher end or the maximum end for me of sponsored shooter. I mean, we don't have people who are professional full-time shooters in the UK, whether we do or not. One day, who knows? And in America, it's a very rare thing. But I think that pretty much covers the spectrum, and we can revisit any of them if you think I've got some. Is that sort of what you're thinking is as well, even if you use different terms?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got those that are getting some element of a discount for things in return for that advertising. Well, everything's connected with advertising. Then you've got those that are receiving equipment for free, whether that's on loan to keep, whatever that situation might be, whatever that agreement that they've got in place. Then you've got the people that are receiving enough that it's either supplementing their income or it's enabling them to dedicate them. You could say become a professional shooter.
Yeah. Cool. As long as we're on the same sort of page, because what's interesting is when you start to look at that, one of the things you see on Facebook is someone saying, it's unfair, why don't I get that? And there are some absolute, and I'll use the word, absolute morons out there who are just angry to see someone else getting something for free, and they don't think about the context of it all. Now, as someone that supports shooters, sponsors shooters, as someone who has friends who are in this industry shooting at a high level, the higher you go up that scale, the more anyone that's giving you something is going to want back. And I don't mean performance, because you'll hear me say, anyone that stood with me talking, listen to me spouting my nonsense, will know that when it comes to people you work with in the industry, performance and being, as the Americans would say, the winningest isn't something that is top of the list for me. So that performance doesn't necessarily have to be winning every competition, but with social media being a massive part of it, there are some people out there whose social media performance is massive and is worth that investment purely from an advertising budget. My accountant, if he's watching this, if Paul's watching this, he'll say, we've had conversations about advertising budget and the team and the reward. And if I'm sponsoring this person, what I'm getting back for it and those tangibles. But for some of these people, yourself included, there's an actual level of expectation from the people that are giving stuff to you. I mean, to quote Chris Gittins from that podcast, people that don't like to be told what to do shouldn't get into the world of sponsored shooters, because you will have people making demands of you. I mean, is that something you feel comfortable talking about in broad brush terms?
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, I've not only been involved in being supported as a shooter, I've also been involved in helping with the management of shooters as well, of shooters involved in these pro teams, whatever you want to call them. And I think if you're the sort of person that is not dedicated and committed to supporting that company that's supporting you, reciprocating with your hard work, commitment, flexibility, being a, whatever level you're at, a good brand ambassador, a good representation of that company, then you're not the sort of person that should be getting involved in this, because either you're going to get stressed out with the expectations that that company has upon you, or the company's going to get stressed out that you're not really giving back what they're putting into it.
Or what you're giving back doesn't fit in with their image.
Yeah.
So another thing Chris Gittins spoke about was personalities within it, and he makes an analogy of there are some people that are squeaky clean, that are an absolute shining example, and there are some companies that think they want a bad boy, and he uses the analogy of the Oakland Raiders. What were the LA Raiders? Well, LA Raiders now, but Oakland Raiders as well as football team in the NFL, and how they had this brand of having the bad boys and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
My experience is that whilst companies might want to have an edge, the virility of social media now means anyone who is a risk in terms of what they might say or do is a massive vulnerability in any marketing strategy for a multinational company. On personalities, I mean, I've said before, I'd rather have, and I've made a conscious effort in the past to have the right people associated with me and my brand, as opposed to, as the Americans would say, the winningest. I don't think sometimes the two always go hand in hand. I've seen people let themselves down in a public arena, people whose ability is without question, that person is a very talented individual in the sport they're in, but they've let themselves down because perhaps they've not got the maturity to be in that position and understand what the obligations are to a company that's backed them. And I think at that point, then you have to ask yourself the question. You have to ask yourself the question: what is it that a company wants to achieve? I've been very fortunate to have some real grown-up conversations with some mega people in the industry, people who run whole companies, and we spoke about how this particular company, which I won't name because it's not fair, and how they wanted to focus on improving the family brand image of their product, and how they wanted to get kids doing something, then the kids could pass it on to their kids, and on and on and on it goes. That only comes with a certain type of person representing a brand, full stop. It doesn't come with a bastard that spits and smokes and all that stuff. It's not what they do. There's a place for that, but it's not from someone that's in the industry and relatively plugged into it. That's not what people want. And I think you've got to acknowledge that those two things are distinctly different. Yeah. Do you want performance at all costs, or do you want personalities? And I can actually measure this. There was a few people in the audience. I was preaching at what's that hotel called we stop at Birmingham, the Moxie. We went to the British Shooting Show this year, and I'd had a few beers, and I found myself on this very subject with some significant industry people sat on the table. I didn't know one of them was a very significant chap from an optics company, and I found myself having a conversation with him saying, you companies, and I generalise massively, are awful at picking the people to represent you. Awful. You go for one of two things: either who's winning, or who's busiest on social media, taking the best pictures and all that Instagram fluff. And I said, you don't sit down with people, get to know them, do your due diligence, which is something I'm big on, and say, is this person someone that we want to absolutely nail our colours to the mast and say we're with them? Because if that wheel comes off, someone will say, well, you should have known he was a this or he was a that. And the response I got from this chap, who's been doing what he's been doing for a long time at a high level, was so positive. He was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Perhaps it's something that we just have marketing budget for and we throw it at, and we don't really care. And I wrote it down on this piece of paper and I called it blind support. And I've seen it before where a company's just given someone money with no ties whatsoever. They've given them something with no ties because they've got a budget and it's easy just to give them money.
Yeah.
And I think for the conscience of the sport, any manufacturers out there listening to that or listening to this, please don't do that. Please think about what message you're putting out there for the sport, for the young kids that are coming through and the people that are getting into it. Because the last thing anyone wants to do is say the following sentence: that is a fantastic piece of kit, just a shame he's using it.
I think it's not just, I think the good companies, or the companies that are really good at building a team of people that are out there promoting their products. I think the companies that are really good at that don't just look for the most winningest. And I guess that's where we're more focused. We're talking really about competition there, aren't we? But also the people that are really active on social media and put a lot of content out, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, podcasts, whatever that might be. But then I think they're also looking for subject matter experts. I think about the Bigara international team, and there's people on that team that are far more knowledgeable than I will ever be about firearms, reloading, hunting disciplines, whatever it might be. And those people play a particular role within the team. There's other people that, because I'm like, I class myself mid-pack shooter, okay? And I've only just clawed myself up there recently, all right? I've got aspirations to go further than that, but I'm by
you've had a good few months in fairness, yeah.
I'm by no means up there with the winningest of people in the sport. But on the Bigara international team, we've got those people less active on social media, but are winning and turn up to international events and the big matches, and they demonstrate that the pairing of their ability with those products can bring results. And there's other aspects to this as well. People that are very confident going to trade shows, talking to end users, talking to people in the trade and so on, and promoting the products in that manner. So there's different people that can fit different roles within these teams. But you're right. First and foremost, that person has to be a good fit for that company. And as I said earlier, needs to respect that they're playing a very important role and representing that company, and they need to take that seriously, and not let themselves or the brand down.
And I think you touched on something then that I mentioned previously about, you called yourself a mid-pack shooter, but you talked about your how busy you are on social media. Now, anyone watching this from the UK that is on Instagram will have a vague understanding of who, and we'll use precision rifle because it's a currency we can talk about. Who within the precision rifle community is active, and let's use followers as a very vulgar way to just talk about success on social media. I'm not aware of anyone in the UK who's shooting precision rifle that's got more than 10,000 followers. I'm not aware of one. There are people that sit between 5 and 10. I know you're in there. John is, Ryan is, and then there might be some others, and I'm not being disrespectful if I've missed them. The reason I mention it is I found myself having a conversation with someone in the industry who will forgive me for saying this. I won't name them, and I'll buy them a beer when I see them for censoring or hiding what I'm going to say. Who said to me, "Well, I think we should be getting more for what we're doing from a certain company," and I sort of said, "Hang on, I think we're doing really well. I think it's a really good situation." And I said, "Well, I think you have to look at what you're giving back." And this person's understanding of them just putting something on social media every now and again. Oh, I'm helping. I'm surely but you're putting it out to no audience, and you're not making product that's shareable. And I think for some people, they have really unrealistic expectations about just what sort of level you've got to be performing at to even to make it even financially viable for these companies. If someone comes to me, and I've had it before, where someone's come and said, "Hi, I'm doing this," on the medical side, quite a lot in fairness. "Do you want to support me? I've got a podcast and I've got a YouTube channel." And I've had to turn to them and say, "Please don't take this the wrong way." I mean, I've helped quite a few people over the years, but I quite often say to people, "Don't take this the wrong way. The investment doesn't meet the reward. The two things don't level out." And it comes down to actual numbers sometimes. You go to America and you look at some of the following some of these people have got. Unreal. Alison Zane. Is it Alison Zane?
Yeah.
You know, take any four precision rifle shooters in the UK, add them together. There's a lady from Eastern Europe, Michaela Hunting, massive following. We met her in France. Massive following. Morgan Kings of the world, a lot of the Americans whose name I forget that tens of thousands of followers. And to a company that's looking to put something back in, that's tangible, that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll easily give you a muzzle brake that cost me 250 quid because I know that you're going to share it to 10 times the people that I've got on my social media. And I think sometimes anyone that's there with a handout saying, "I fancy a bit of that," ask yourself the question, look in the mirror and say, what can I give to that company that's going to make them think that this is a wise investment? And if everyone on Facebook who chatted shit about "it's not fair, why am I not getting something, he doesn't deserve it," did that inward reflection might actually stop a few people making themselves just look like bellends on social media. I've done all my swearing now, and that was only mild swear. But I think it's something I've always been frustrated by, these internet warriors that think it's unfair. I've just noticed how the ears are sticking out here on this.
I was looking at
These internet warriors that think it's great to slag someone off who's worked the bollocks off to get support from the industry by putting a load of content out there, by being a nice guy, by answering messages, by going to shows, by doing all this stuff. And let's not kid ourselves, without speaking out of turn, because I know you don't need the financial support. You're a man that's worked hard your whole life, and you're able to buy your own stuff. There are a lot of people within the industry who get really good support, but don't need it. It's nice, don't get me wrong. And I think if I was you, I'd feel really warm inside that a company thinks I'm worth supporting. But this isn't like a gravy train where some magic doors unlocked and you can go through it and the velvet ropes open. You'd be shooting even if you weren't sponsored and supported.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm shooting.
Some people need to realise it isn't some big paid gravy train that is just gifted to someone because they're your mate. And I think some people see that, they think, "Oh, he's only got that." Unfortunately, there are people that are given advantage because of their position, who I would say don't deserve it, who either take advantage of a business relationship they've got or a position they've got in the industry. But that's always going to go on. No name, no pat drill. But if you're in a position where you'd say you're in the industry and have access to things in the industry and you're giving them for free, then why wouldn't you? The only hope is that you're responsible in that position. You don't abuse it, and you don't end up with your wheel coming off because you've just been taking more than you're giving back, or you've been caught with your hand in the cookie jar, or what it might be.
Yeah.
So that balance I find really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And this whole thing about how I'll tell you a story. So 2 years ago now, 2 years ago, I was in Spain with Vigara on a pro team get together. We done a visit of the factory in Vigara, North Spain, and We then had a tour of the new factory that they were moving to, 10 times the size of the existing factory where they'd been for decades. They were expanding. We did a range day, and then we headed down just outside of Madrid to a lovely estate where we were going to be camping for a few nights, enjoying some local cuisine and doing a bit of hunting around the lake and what have you. And that night we were having a couple of beers and some tapas under the stars, and I got a message off somebody who's very, very active on social media, a stalker in the UK. I won't name them, but a stalker in the UK, and he messaged me and just said, how, because I've been posting about this adventure in Spain. He was like, how did you get that? Because all I was really at the time was that I did a bit of competition shooting. I was involved in the GBPRA, and I was doing a lot of rabbit hunting with the rifle over my shoulder there. That was the rifle that really set things off for me with Bergara when I bought that with my own dollar and started doing a lot of social media with featuring that rifle.
That's getting retired to the Bergara museum, that I reckon. The most 2 round to a rimfire rifle ever, I think.
Possibly. Anyway. The one that's been on the most posts on social media, at least, anyway. But anyway, how did you do this? And I took a little bit of time to respond. And what I basically said was, in 2018, I bought my first ever centerfire rifle. It was a Bergara B14 HMR 6.5 Creedmoor. And I was keen because I didn't know anybody in shooting circles. I'd only just joined a rifle club, just starting to learn about shooting and hunting. But I bought that rifle based on what I'd seen on social media, reviews of it that people had done on YouTube. And I bought the rifle. I was very happy with it. I wanted to eventually do some deer stalking with it. I wanted to do some competition shooting. I definitely wanted to do some range shooting as well. But because it was a centerfire, we were a bit limited over here to how much we can shoot. I was only posting about it every now and again. I just enjoyed going on social media and sharing pictures and telling a little bit about what I was up to, connecting with other owners. I joined the Bergara International Owners Group, just connecting with people. I had questions, so I'd ask the question. Sorry?
You were a fan.
I was a fan. I was a fan.
You were a fan.
Yeah, definitely. And I was
not just a customer. You were a fan because you'd bought into the brand at that point because you liked it. Yeah,
and I was connecting with other people and asking questions and learning as I was going along. Now, one of the people that group at the time was quite small on Facebook, but one of the people in there was I didn't know, but he was the pro team leader for Bergara. There was other people from Bergara company in that group, looking at who was posting and talking and what they were saying about the rifles, getting customer feedback. And there was also a gentleman from the UK, Lewis McFarlane, who we know very well. Now he's actually an employee of Bergara, but at the time he wasn't on the pro team either, but he was very active, talking to Bergara and giving them feedback about rifles and engaging with them. And then I got that rifle, and previously I've been shooting a Ruger 1022 and I was hunting rabbits, but I got that rifle and that was it then. Every week, a few times a week, I'd be out hunting the rabbits and I'd be posting about it.
Up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, up at 5 a.m. because I've got a day job. It's not a shooting.
I remember, because at this point, I remember the first time I came across you before we even met, and I saw you out early doors on stuff, and I remember thinking to myself, fucking hell, he's nuts, him. He's always out all the time. He's proper committed. And I remember it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was having a coffee, and I was like, nah. So I can testify to that fact that before any of the sport came along, you were out putting the hours in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I just enjoyed it. I like getting up early and going out and doing a bit of stalking on the rabbits. But anyway, this is the story abbreviated. I know I can waffle on a bit. This is the story I'm telling the guy while I'm sat in Spain having a beer, and I'm replying to his question about how I got on the pro team. And I said, look, I was already a fan. I was engaging on social media already. I was putting content out there. I was effectively promoting the rifle in me, telling my stories of my outings. And that caught the attention of Bergara. And then when they were looking for pro team members, they did a little post saying, if anybody's interested in joining the pro team, let us know. So I got in touch and I said, well, what would that be? What would that involve? Yeah, I might be interested. And they said, well, if you're interested, Christian, keep doing what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's like, right, okay, then I will do. Give me a bit of motivation, you know what I mean? Now, at the time, Lewis McFarlane got taken onto the pro team. They were just starting to really build that international team up. They already had an established team in North America, which is a different market for Bigara. Lewis joined the team. Then I wanted to start getting into stalking, talking about this on social media. Lewis said, come up, I'll take it out with me. So I went and met Lewis, started to form a relationship there. And then a year later, after I'd first mentioned that I'd be interested in the pro team, a year later, literally nothing had really been said for a full year. By now I'd joined your team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You remember Christmas Day?
I do,
Christmas Day, I got a message from Al Lou, Bigara Pro Team manager and also
for the record, the podcast record, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah,
straight business, straight guy. You know, he won't mess about. I'll tell you what he's thinking, but really nice guy.
Yeah, and he called me and he invited me to join the team. I could have been knocked over. Was not expecting it whatsoever, but Al's philosophy on a pro team is that pro team has to act like a family, and they already felt like I was joining that family with my interactions. The fact that I was already enjoying the product, I was promoting the product by default by telling my stories, and they invited me onto the team. They also had seen that I'd started to get a lot into the competition shooting, and what they had at the time was hunters and not competition shooters. And I said, and my response was, thank you very much, but I'm already a member of a team. And I just need to go and check. I'm massively honoured, and I'd love to join the team, but I've got commitments elsewhere, and I need to go and see if that's okay first of all. Because one thing about me is I like to think I'm very loyal. So I gave you a shout, didn't I? Sorry for disturbing you on Christmas Day. I was like, mate, I've just had Bigara on the line. They've asked me to join their team.
Do you remember what I said?
Would that cause a problem with you? And
do you remember what I said? Oh, you're frozen. Don't freeze at the best bit. Are you getting me? Because I'm not getting you.
Connection.
Oh, you froze at the best bit then. Are you with me?
I thought you froze.
We both froze. Let's call it a draw. So I just said, do you remember what I said when you gave me a shout on Christmas Day? Do you remember?
So when I called you and said, that's my question to you was, what did you say to me?
So you told me what happened, and I was like, are you fucking mad? Snap the hand off. I saw it for the opportunity it was, and also I'd like to think, for the gobshite that I am, I'm relatively humble. I saw it as an opportunity for you to get more support than I could give you, you know. Yeah. And I've had this conversation with other people out there in podcast land in the real world who shoot competitions, who have had grown-up conversations saying, I'll support you as a business, but there's limits to what I can do. I've sent people overseas with rifles and optics and stuff, and I've had great support from the industry, but there's a limit. I ain't a multinational, multi-million-pound company like some of these companies are. So when that opportunity was there, it was an absolute no-brainer. And it's easy for me to say it because you're a mate of mine and you sat on a podcast, but it was thoroughly deserved because you put the proper legwork in. And we mentioned due diligence before. Bigara are the sort of company that, having worked with them, and I know quite a few people, having spent time sat with people like Al Lou on the tailgate of my car at World Championships and stuff, they do the due diligence. They're a very well-run company with a massive family ethos. So I saw it for the opportunity it was, and you deserved it.
So obviously that's how I got associated with Bigara at the time. And but what I was telling the guy when I was sat in Spain with Bigara was, you know, you just got to keep putting the content out there. You know, show that you're committed to something, even though they haven't committed to you. You're committing to them, okay? And then the doors will open. Now,
go on.
Sorry. So just
no, go on, mate.
Now, fast forward 2 years. not a lot of people widely know this, but the one and only time I've actually applied to be part of a pro team was recently when I applied to join the Pulsar Pro staff. Don't use Pulsar products, but I have used Pulsar products, and I know that they're
brilliant. Yeah,
very good stuff. And what I see with their pro team reminds me a lot of the Vigara pro team and the Jackal team as well, in terms of family ethos, lots of loyalty, very supportive.
Character over performance.
Character over performance.
Which is something I'm a big fan of.
And lots of opportunities and so on. Plus the fact that premium products that you want to be associated with, of course you do. You want to be using those products. Now I applied, I got knocked back. No reasons why. It was just thank you, very strong application, but not what we're looking for right now. And you know what? When I look at what I do, okay, a lot of competition shooting, and I'm not out hunting, stalking and stuff like I am a lot of other people. So I get it. I understood it. I knew it was a long shot, but you know what? I want to go through the process and see where I come.
And genuinely, it wasn't badge collecting. You do a lot of late night, early morning stalking, so thermals and night vision. We were only out trying some the other week. It's a genuine thing that you need to do what you're doing. So it's not like a whim or a flight of fancy.
I put a lot of thought into it before I applied, but I've done my homework, and I knew that if I was going to get invited onto their team, that would be a commitment that I would treat almost like a job, and I put my all into it. But they rejected me, and I understood why. I could see why, and I got it. That same guy that 2 years ago was wondering why he couldn't get the sort of support that I was getting from a major brand. Okay. And he was like asking all the questions. Well, I don't get it. I think I'm doing the right thing. And my main advice to him was, mate, I was following him on social media. Your profile's great. You're doing good stuff. Just keep doing it. There's no secret recipe. Just keep going. He got taken on by them. I couldn't have been happier for him. It was like he had to wait a bit for it, but he got there.
And to flip this on the head, of the benefit of this podcast, hopefully people appreciate the two perspectives we're coming at it from. I'm acutely aware of what I get back from people that I support and sponsor. I never make demands of people. Those that work with me know that I don't use the word performance. If anything, I say performance is a distasteful word when it comes to genuine content and support. But I've looked at people and gone, I like what he's doing. He's really good and really busy. And there's been occasions where I've not moved fast enough. And this individual has been offered some support from someone else. And I've kicked myself going, oh, what a shame. And that's how it works. I look at it from the other way. I look at someone, and don't get me wrong, there's people I support who give me more than just social media presence. They're great ambassadors behind the scenes. I'm very much involved in trying to, give the NRA a shake and give UKPSA a shake and UK, NRSA, and trying to get those people around a table. And I've got people that I work with and I support who are fighting those fights for me behind the scenes with home office clubs and stuff like that. So I like to think I have a wholesome approach to the support I give out. But equally, I'm realistic. The fact I'm not running a charity, I'm running a business. And some of those decisions you've got to make are based on something as simple as that person posts more than someone else, or the quality of the photographs is better than someone else. I know it sounds ridiculous, but someone out there that's producing, top quality photography, high res images with all the artistry and tradecraft in it is worth its weight in gold. A mate of mine, I'll tell you now because he won't mind. Luke from York Knife got a phenomenal social media following. His products are great. Only the other day he was talking to someone about having some photographs made, and the cost of these photographs, I think it was like £75 a photograph, and he wanted a few dozen of them, and that starts to become a massive cost. If you've got someone who's already producing qualities of a high photographs of a high quality, you're thinking, I'm getting free high quality images of my products in their hand or in the field. It's almost a no-brainer. And they're all the things that I look at when I'm saying, does this person, I don't say deserve my support, that sounds terrible. Should I make a business decision to support this person? And again, I've explained loads of reasons why I would support someone. I haven't stood on top of the podium at any point yet. Don't get me wrong, I've been very fortunate. He'll blush for me saying it. I was very fortunate to be given the opportunity to support Noah Smith early in his shooting career. His shooting career has then gone on and he's going and winning junior stuff week in, week out, and it's been great. He's a nice kid. His dad's a nice guy. His mum's a nice lady. They're all nice people. And he's gone and he's carrying the torch for juniors in the UK in relation to where they should aspire to get to. But that was a conversation that was had. I'm pointing whichever I'm putting. I think it was your fault. I think you introduced me to Noah. And at that point, did I know who he was? No. So I went and did some due diligence. I looked at him and saw what he was doing, and I took it on advice from either yourself or John or someone else who said, let's offer this chap some support. And then the performance has come. There wasn't a caveat, mate. I'll give you this optic if you do the following. It was like, here's your stuff. Just go and enjoy yourself. Go out to Italy, shoot the life out of this barreled action you've got on this optic, and enjoy yourself. And I think in the long term, if you support the right people, the performance dividend will just come. You've said it yourself. Your performance from a comp side's gone up. The support you had was there before you started coming away with little shiny bullet things with your name on it and all that sort of stuff. So if you do your due diligence and you support the right people, they will come good, I think.
Yes.
Me being
absolutely
an old romantic.
I can't. When England won the Rugby World Cup, first time
back in the day, Johnny Wilkinson, we're talking back in the day.
Yeah, what was the manager called at the time?
Oh mate, I don't know. I remember watching it. I was working in Manchester at the time. I remember watching it. Mate, I don't know.
I remember somebody asked him about his team selection principles, and he said, every person on my team has to be a captain.
Yeah, love it.
Every person on my team, it's like I'm not looking for superstars. I'm looking for a captain in every position.
Yeah.
And he said the people with the right commitment, the right attitude, the right outlook, all of that.
And I think that's a perfect segue whilst we sit on character. I think to segue into, and this will become clear in the fullness of time, to talk about one of the things that was one of my biggest bugbears in the sport of precision rifle shooting, and that's prize tables. Now, I'll invert this arse about face in that I'll say the reason we're talking about prize tables now and character is because I have my views on it, but there was quite a significant incident happened in the States recently where some people fell out at a prize table, if you recall. Now, I won't name people for legal reasons because they'll probably not listen to this podcast, but still, someone will tell them I'm a twat and try and sue me. But a situation occurred whereby a grown person and a child found themselves stood at a prize table and ended up scrapping over a prize. And I think we're all human and we all make mistakes and we're all prone to error, and emotions and lethargy and all those things get the better of us sometimes. But I think character for me is something that those people out in podcast land who follow the sport perhaps should be more acutely aware of what they're invested in, who they're invested in, as opposed to the one-dimensional bit of that's shiny, that's a good score, and those one-dimensional things. Now, reason being is prize tables are something that I personally, and this is me being personal, this isn't any brand or anyone I work with or anything like that, or his view. I think prize tables are distasteful in the sport. My whole rant would be prize tables that are won by the podium people is an utter nonsense. In the sport we're in, where most people that are on podiums are already set up in terms of the kit they've got and the investment they've made and the relationships they've got, for them to then win something that is a piece of equipment that they would use is mind-blowingly stupid on behalf of anyone, because they're not going to use it unless it happens to be something they're already using. i.e. they run an ABC chassis, like what I did there. They run an ABC chassis already, and then they run another ABC chassis or an ABC bipod or whatever it might be. And you see it an awful lot. I've seen it firsthand where I've sponsored an event and I've put something on a prize table, only to hear that first, second, and third got a first, second, and third prize. And then they literally said to the people that were there, anything you want for the table? And people just went around grazing and picking up stuff, which I don't mind doing on face value, but it becomes a participation trophy then. Now, what I've seen some very forward-thinking people doing is going, brilliant, the prize on the table are going to go to most improved shooter, best junior. And I won't dwell on juniors because I've got a whole thing about grassroots support from the industry to come next. Something that is benefiting those towards the bottom end of performance, whose performance is probably affected by the fact they've not got as good a kit as those at the top. Those at the top don't need assistance, in my experience. Financially capable of shooting, boarding competitions, ammunition and kit, typically have some support from someone in the industry. Why the hell do they need to win something off a prize table? I've heard enough stories of things happening where people have won stuff and then put it on eBay. Applicants done it. You've heard the stories of someone winning a prize and selling it. And there's a company that
works hard. The recent PRS UK match.
Right. As someone that works really hard to run a business, my products and products that represent the companies I work with being sort of disregarded or not dished out in what I class as a responsible manner, I think is irresponsible from people running prize tables. Now, I'm not saying prize tables on the whole should go. I'm just saying things like vouchers is more tasteful. Things like prizes geared towards underprivileged or new shooters or all that sort of stuff is what people should do. And if you're a manufacturer out there and you're contributing to these prize tables, hey, don't get me wrong, some people win some great stuff and they're really happy. People win optics and all sorts and chassis and some amazing things. But I think there's an ethical question here that what are we doing? Are we literally just throwing money at something, or are we adding value to the broader sport by making sure the right people are benefiting from that massive chunk of cash that a sponsor gives to an event organizer? Because you're talking sometimes thousands of pounds of the kit on these prize tables. And there are people shooting those events coming down the pecking order who could really do with them. Hey, sometimes it happens. I can think of several examples of where someone went, I don't want that. There you go. Give that to someone else. Beautiful. Love it when it happens. But it doesn't happen a lot. Thoughts? Keep space. Far too deep that for this time around.
I mean, so whenever I think about these topics, I try and compare the sport of precision rifle to other sports. So what's wrong with a Roger Federer going to Wimbledon, winning Wimbledon and taking the biggest prize?
Cash prize.
He's sponsored. He's got all the money he needs. He doesn't need any of that prize money anymore. He could just get by with a really nice lifestyle, doing the sport he loves on all of the sponsorship deals that he's got. Doesn't need those prizes. But nobody begrudges him winning those prizes, do they?
Well, it's cash, typically, that's why.
But, and again, this is why I do the comparison. Those sports are bringing in that much revenue that they can do the cash prizes, and nobody's going to be able to give him £250,000 worth of equipment.
Tennis rackets.
Of tennis rackets. They're going to have, it's like, that's not practical. They're going to have to give him the cash. Yeah. And there's prestige in Wimbledon being able, as a Grand Slam, being able to give those big prize monies. And then obviously the bigger the prizes at the top, the more people are getting lower down in their positions. It all steps up, doesn't it, a level?
Now, it does. Go on.
You've asked me a question, Anna. Right.
Sorry, mate. I'm sorry.
All right. So let me finish my thoughts. I know I go on a bit too.
No, you don't.
I know I talk a bit slow, but I think our sport is not in a position where it can make those cash payments, I think that the money that comes into the sport has to come in the form of products, just purely because of where the sport is at the moment. It is a niche sport. It just doesn't have the money behind it to support that sort of a prize table structure. And I think it's part of the brand's promotion, rather than a brand just rocking up and saying, "There's £2,500, well done for winning." Mm-hmm. To actually put the £2,500 rifle scope on the prize table and have the winner holding it, whether they sell it later or whatever they do, having the winner there with the product saying, "Thank you very much, Loophole, Schmidt and Bender, whoever, for my new scope." I think they get the promotion through it that way as well. For the shooter who's shooting really well, spending a lot of money on ammunition, they might be sponsored and everything. That for them is an additional motivation to keep at the pinnacle of their sport and generating that competition that keeps driving the level of the elite level of that sport forward and forward and forward, because they're trying to win those prizes.
Well, I'm not blaming the shooter here.
No, I'm not. I know you're not.
And if you said to me, "I've won, so you can have the most expensive thing on the table," let's look at ourselves. Those prize tables are value structured. The number one prize is the most expensive thing. I'm talking about what I mentioned earlier about that blind support that manufacturers give. That's almost one-dimensional. I'll actually call it naive support. In that, if you did a survey to everyone that had won a precision rifle, or everyone that had podiumed or got a prize table position in precision rifle in the UK in the last 5 years, and said, "Do you use the thing that you won? Do you use the thing that you won?" We both know how low that number would be. We do.
Yeah, because the top shooters, the people that are typically winning these matches are typically sponsored.
They don't need a new tripod or a new pair of binos or a new optic. They don't. So the reason I find price tables distasteful is I see it in quite simple binary. This, a company is putting money into a sport. Tangibly, how can that money benefit the sport? And it doesn't benefit the elite level shooters being given stuff that either they don't need or they don't value or they end up selling. The question I'd ask of any responsible manufacturer, sponsor, supporter, which I've done to a few of them face to face, is, do you think what you're doing is actually adding value? And I think the value to elite level shooters is minimal. The potential impact they could have upon new shooters and young shooters, or new young shooters, or whichever way you spin it, is a real missed opportunity. And I think if nothing else, if people were getting into the sport and being given a leg up by the industry, it would do two things. It would nullify some of these social media people that are saying, "Why can't I get any dividend from this? I'm paying £200 to go and shoot a precision rifle weekend. I'm spending all this money and time, and I'm becoming a bit disheartened." Whereas if all of a sudden people started getting like free match fees or some other support than something that is a tangible, shiny thing that they just, I've seen it myself. I've seen someone win something on a prize table, go, "Thanks a lot," and hand it to someone else.
Yeah.
With no value at all. So from an industry point of view, if these people don't have a conscience about it and they don't really care, then do you know what? I'm wasting my time trying to ethically get those people to look at whether their money's been spent in the correct manner. But at some point, someone's going to have to say, that's not the most sensible use of our resource, because we're not really adding a lot of value to the sport.
See, so I guess you see from the industry perspective. I guess I'm coming from the shooter's perspective. But when that shooter who's won a prize off the prize table, and I've got a recent example, I won't name the shooter, but I've got a recent example just a couple of weeks ago where somebody won a very nice set of loopholed binos off a prize table. And they said, "I don't need these binos. and they selected somebody from the crowd that had been in their squad who didn't have their own binos and said, you can have them because you need them. How's that not promoting Loophole and supporting the shooters?
So the individual that won the prize made that decision, yeah?
Yeah.
So there you go. Character. It was lucky that that person was of a solid enough character where they saw that they would rather do a solid for someone else that needed it rather than saying, mate, I'm going to bang those on eBay as soon as I get home.
Right. So the same match, somebody else won a pair of the same binos, and within days, they were promoted online for sale at a reduced price than what they would be if they were brand new. So somebody's
that's the point where I'm going to stop this conversation, because that's exactly the thing that makes me uncomfortable with the whole price table. Is that you're relying on people's character to do the right thing. In the same way, companies will throw money at something for sponsorship. They don't care where it's going. It's blind. It's naive to the point of being obtuse, where they're happy to just get a load of stock off the shelf and bang it on the table because that's how they think they support the industry. I'm not knocking these companies because I work with a lot of them. I'm just asking them to think bigger picture, because, and I'll go on about it in a short while in relation to, we're not growing. The sport isn't growing at the moment. No. The sport, certainly precision rifle, is at a point of, I think, at a significant juncture where we're talking about trying to grow 2-2 and pathways into the sport, but we're not doing anything to back up those wonderful barstool rhetoric, because all I see is a top-end investment. That's just me. I might be wrong.
And just aside from putting cash on the table, though, so that shooter who won that set of binos doesn't win a set of binos, wins some cash and say, thank you very much, Loophole, for putting that on the prize table. And that would have been better for that shooter because they'd rather have the cash than the product. Mm-hmm. But again, Loophole doesn't get the advertisement of the picture with the binos and stuff like that. So I can see how it can benefit the company. Yeah. I can see how it benefits the shooter. And it also benefits somebody who needs new equipment and maybe is looking to, budget carefully how they spend the money. So I'm struggling to understand what
I'll tell you
the issue is with it.
So give someone a voucher. Give someone a voucher for them to buy something that they want. So it might be the case that they win something they don't want and they end up handing it off. Give them a voucher. As a business, I'd much rather give that company my money, an amount of money, for them to do something I see as more practical, which is something like your prizes, free match fees, or something like that. The things that people need. No one that turns up at that event needs what they've won. They don't. They're already there and they're shooting. They might upgrade. You might be lucky enough to get an optic that's superior to your optic and on it goes. But people have already got there and they've already paid the money and they're on the range shooting. I think then to win something that they weren't planning to buy, the likelihood of you winning something that you've got on your list is so low. You're going to buy something that is ultimately superfluous. And I think if you're doing that, it becomes more of a token thing that you're giving to someone that lacks the validity and the purpose of something that you would otherwise buy if you were given an amount of money. Or, let's be straight about it, the best thing you can win on a prize table is ammunition. Best thing. If I have it all the time, I'll sponsor something, I'll say, I'll give you 500 quid of ammunition. Top prize. I don't tell them what ammunition, I'm giving them a voucher for ammunition. And they come to me and they say, well, I shoot a 142, 65 Creedmoor, blah, blah, blah. Brilliant. Off you go. Putting something on, I just think it's a real unsophisticated way to do it. And if that's the best way, do you know what I love? I love some of them big trophies. I love the big bullets that PRS do.
Yeah.
I love the wooden things and the gongs and all that stuff. I'm a trophy guy. If you win, you've got, here you go. You go to Bisley and win something, what do you get?
Medal.
Do you win a pair of underpants or a unicorn helmet or something? You don't. You win a medal.
You get a medal.
I'll apologise now speaking out of turn, but when we first started speaking to the NRA about getting precision rifle at Bisley, one of the things they were most concerned about was commercial input and how price tables were, I will quote someone from the NRA, gregarious was the word that was used. Only someone from Bisley could use a word like gregarious.
I think gregarious is a great word.
It's a great word. I would never use it because I'm a northern knobhead. And they got it. And for me, I think that's a far more wholesome example to set for juniors getting into the sport than for, I'll say it, prize grabbing elite level shooters who have already got enough toys. They don't need a new train set.
I mean,
I'm done. I'm done.
You know, no, I get it. I get it. You know,
right. Let's move on.
And we could be sat in the pub whinging about overpaid footballers. It's like.
But I'm done. And the reason is there's a segue here. There's a segue. Because one of my biggest observations, I know it's a bugbear, but I won't do it, I'll say observations, is what are we doing in the UK to support grassroots shooting? Juniors, underrepresented people, ladies and stuff like that.
Before we move on to that, can I have the final word on prize tables?
Will I agree with it?
No. Well, you might. I have got first-hand experience of how prize tables have helped junior shooters. I'm
not saying it never happens. I'm just saying there are very few examples. Go.
Well, I like I say, every PRS UK match I've been to, I have seen a lot of people benefit from those prize tables.
Good. Yeah. You're going to give us an example?
But I get it. I get it. I know they can be controversial because sometimes I think the companies that are putting into them don't necessarily feel the benefit of what's being put into because of some people with poor character that don't necessarily approach it the right way.
I'm intentionally not naming anyone because I think it's a problem across the board. What I'm saying is the understanding from industry about what they can do to support these events is outdated, if not inaccurate.
I see where you're coming from.
Of course, these companies will take what they can and present it and wrap it up and give it as a prize. But nowadays, I think we need to be a bit more sophisticated about how we, as the industry, and I have companies that I work for who say to me, Simon, what do you think? I think we need to be a bit more, we need to have a bit of a broader understanding about how we can add value to this sport than just putting shiny things on the table.
Understood.
And I think for me, this sport is in its infancy with maybe 5 or 6 years into precision rifle. I remember Tiff putting golf balls on strings at Bodmin in 2016. So let's say, for argument's sake, we're 8 years into it before he even started the Precision Rifle League. And I think we just need to have a bit of a think about it. And there's a logic in this because one of my frustrations, if not observations, is how little we as a sport are overtly doing for underrepresented people within the sport. There are lots of, what did someone call them? White, fat, middle-aged guys with guns or something. There was some phrase that someone used. And it was, there is a demographic within precision rifle, 25 to 40 shooters, upwardly mobile in terms of having the income to be able to afford £500 weekends to shoot competitions with centre fire. And there are some fantastic ladies shooting the sport. There are some fantastic kids shooting the sport. I think anyone that's been on a firing line would agree that those numbers are far too low. Anyone that's been stood around me having to suffer my nonsense and my chatting will have heard me talk about this. And I'm very passionate about bringing kids into the sport and ladies into the sport and young ladies into the sport. And I just think we as an industry, and I'm talking about the sellers, I'm not talking about the customers or the shooters, I'm talking about the sellers. We as an industry perhaps need to be a bit more mindful of the fact that we perhaps could be adding some more strategic value to the sport. Me spending 10 grand now to make a prize table full is great. And it has a very short-term effect on those people that are there shooting. Me putting 10 grand into long-term gateways, pathways for juniors and ladies to get into the sport will bear far more fruit than any other investment. And all I'd plead is that those people that are spending advertising budget, looking to support the sport, just have a think about that. Does our advertising strategy, and I'm no mug, I've learned an awful lot since I've been in business about advertising strategies, business plans and projections and what have you, that you've got to think forwards. And I'll quote him. He can call me all he wants. And I sat with Al Lou in France at the Worlds having a conversation about how to bring people in. Sorry, for the benefit of those that don't know him, Al Lou from Bagara, who is the marketing, what is he?
Marketing coordinator.
About how you do this and how you bring kids in. And the reality is, it's an awful lot of work to both signpost them in and sustain them. Because at the moment, everyone's shooting a precision rifle match can afford it. I'd ask you, imagine if there was someone there who was on a scholarship, who was there because of their shooting prowess and not the depth of their pockets. And the question I will ask is, how many people who are capable of shooting in this sport are not being given an opportunity because they haven't got the financial mobility to do it? And this is me now. This is what I'm passionate about. This is one of the reasons I stepped away from GBPRA, because I didn't feel that that everyone got this, that anyone got this, that as any influencing factor in a sport, as an organisation, you've got to have aims and objectives, and you've got to want to grow the sport. How many times have we said grow the sport, Christian, over the years? Grow the sport, grow the sport, grow the sport. Who's doing anything about it?
Yeah.
And this is where I can get on my high horse and my soapbox and say to people, it ain't difficult. Find some kids, find a venue where kids are shooting, support them, give them the support where financially it becomes more viable for them to shoot. We want to win a Worlds. We want to invest in the youth so that we're winning them consecutively going forwards. It is an interesting one. We watched the Olympics the other day, and my wife said to me, she said, "Blooming heck, Japan have done really well in the gymnastics. When did they start being good at gymnastics?" Japan.
Right, okay.
They won the team gymnastics.
Right.
They beat China and America. I remember years ago watching the Olympics and someone very switched on saying that it was like a British athlete who'd been taken on by a foreign nation to be involved in their Olympic strategy. And they said there is an 8-year rule in the Olympics. You invest in a discipline for 8 years and you reap the benefits beyond that.
Yeah.
The theory being is the first Olympics, you go there and you fail, but you've got a structure in place. The second Olympics, you go there and you compete. By the time you get there for a third year, at year 8, you're seeing if your instruction and your structure has worked.
Yeah.
That's what Japan have done. We did it with swimming and cycling back in the 2012s and all that sort of time. We saw a dividend from building the velodrome at Manchester, which I remember seeing Chris Hoy come out of there every day, and talking to him and him saying, "It's a great venue, this will bring us so many juniors." And that was that investment. So I'm asking the question of anyone that's involved in supporting precision rifle in the UK, what's your long-term strategy? What's your plan? And where are you putting your money? Because there's lots of money sloshing about, but I question, as the gobshite voice of precision rifle podcasts, whether it's going where it should go. I'm not a purist. I'm physically, financially supporting kids shooting myself, and we'll talk about the academy another day, which I'm very passionate about. But I'd like to think I'm doing my bit for a small, limited company.
Yeah.
But it's a big question, and I don't want to get too high and mighty about it, because I want to encourage people, not dissuade them. I just want people just to look at it a bit different.
So if we think about precision rifle specifically, nor the discipline, nor the sport, you've got the International Precision Rifle Federation, and it has a junior league, a junior division, and it's up to age 18 for 2-2, and then up to age 24 centre fire.
Yeah.
What does that mean in practical terms? Simply, all it means is every 2 years you'll have a 2-2 competition, and every other 2 years you're going to have a centre fire competition, and each country can take along 4 juniors to that competition. That's as far as the IPRF goes in terms of supporting junior shooters. Bring that down to the country level in the UK, the GBPRA also has that same structure in place. When we set up the GBPRA and we set up the membership system, I think we went a little step further, and we set membership fees for juniors at £10 versus the £35 that you normally see. But the GBPRA again doesn't do anything specifically to promote and to encourage in a practical way bringing juniors into the sport of precision rifle. What you will see is when a junior turns up, that they will get arms thrown around them, they'll get loads of support, and they'll be like, please come and stand with me, use my rifle.
Absolutely. And please, what I don't want anyone to do is think that this is an exercise in identifying failure. This isn't
not at all.
This is an exercise in promoting a slightly different way of thinking, which is invest in the future now for future success.
Point out where the opportunities are.
When you're going to work every day and all you're doing is driving to work, you're in a rut, you're in a routine, and you do what you do every day. It's not until someone says to you, have you thought about doing something different? Have you thought about getting a train or perhaps walking and getting some exercise? Have you thought about moving jobs nearer to home? Human nature is that we do things a certain way, and it's not until someone suggests something different that we think about it. And what I want this to be is an opportunity for people to look at it and think, of everything we're investing in, our time, effort, and money into this sport that is, as I've said a million times before, the best dynamic shooting sport there is. Full stop. I mean, shot them all. Full stop.
Yeah.
What are we doing that's future-proofing the investment that we're making, both as individuals, because you pay your money to go and shoot an event, you buy your kit off someone, you buy your ammunition, and as manufacturers, importers, retailers, distributors, all those selling people, to actually build for the future. Otherwise, we rely on talent popping through, weed popping through the cracks in the paving slabs in the front yard, or we rely on someone who's financially mobile enough for their ability to be met by the support, the tangible support that they need to get going forwards. There are lots of people out there doing great things promoting juniors. I just think we need to have at the forefront of our thoughts a little bit more.
And it's something you've always done, because you've always looked at supporting younger shooters through Team Jackal. Jack Ferns.
When he was junior.
Sorry,
but again, it's not about me.
No. But I'm going to go on to something else. I'm using what you do, what you've been doing as an example of where I think there are opportunities and ways of addressing some of this with grassroots, with junior shooters. There's that support that you can give them by making them part of a team. You've always done that with juniors. Jack Ferns, Luca, my own son, before Bagara decided that they would like to see a junior join the Bagara national team as well. Luca moved over onto the team. Noah came in. Noah Smith, who we've already talked about, he came in behind. Obviously, we've now set up Jackal Rifle Club, setting up an academy specifically focused on junior shooters and giving them the practical support to get into the sport, whether that's, equipment to use, safe environments to shoot in with experienced people that can coach, mentor, and help them. That's the sort of thing that if we could replicate around the country, the GBPRA and the IPRF would start to see more junior shooters feeding in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just something. Next week I've got Rob Ramsden on. I'm not sure if you're about or not, but Rob will talk about the performance pyramid, which is another thing I can go on about, and how to have enough people performing at an elite level, you've got to have a sufficient amount of people below them moving up.
Yeah.
And it is that shape. And it's always in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about the longevity of the sport, the development of the sport, how the international team maintains its competitiveness, and how we look to have new people coming through with fresh ideas, fresh skills, fresh whatever it is, dynamics and looks and stuff. Only, let's be straight about it. Filling international teams with juniors and females has always been an issue. They've always been underrepresented, and to an extent, some countries have sent not enough of either. And I think that's a real miss. And I think if we make the moves now across the board to try and address that, then at least when we come to an international event, we'll have people that are there on merit, as opposed to people that are being invited because we just can't make the numbers up. And I think you'll never be a nation that competes. And equally, at ground level, shooting these events, if you're watching it as a 14-year-old kid and you're not seeing another 14-year-old kid there at an event shooting, you're going to say, this isn't for me, this. In the same way, of any positive action in relation to any business, unless people from an underrepresented community see themselves or someone from their community within that entity, they can't picture themselves there. So I think, anyway, it's one for another conversation. There's a whole podcast to be had about how I, in my humble understanding, think we should bring more juniors into sport. There's also a podcast to be had about that performance pyramid and the things that, for those who don't know Rob Ramsden, you think I can chat. Rob was the former, get this right, what was he with the IPRF before he left? Technical...
Chairman.
Oh, sorry, he was the chairman. I'm sorry, Rob, if you're listening.
Yeah, Marcus Olsen.
He used to be the chairman, but he is a very, very clever guy who gets the intricacies of legislation, rules, structures. He has a broad understanding of sporting infrastructure outside of shooting, but he's also very passionate about some of the things I'm passionate about in relation to how you genuinely grow the sport, not just a bumper sticker, grow the sport, genuinely grow any sport, and what you need to have in place to do that.
Yeah. Now, can I? You mentioned the making sure that we maintain not just the grassroots, but the people that are already, in the sport, and I guess competing on the same stage as some of the elite shooters. And if you think about it, your top 10%, there's some money coming in to the match directors for the matches that they're shooting. But if you're not looking after the people that are mid-pack and at the bottom of these matches every day, at every match, then you're missing a trick, and you'll find that quite quickly people will start to fade away from it. And I think this is somewhere where I think I'm going to come back to prize tables. I think prize tables feed into this quite a bit. If I've got one issue with prize tables, I feel sometimes that, yes, the top shooters get to walk them, but occasionally then it can turn into something a little bit more random. And people are looking at what's on the prize, and then, I wanted that, and then that's gone, and I wanted that, and that's gone, and now I'm left with a cap or something like that. Whereas if a match just had a structure of prize money, where the top shooter gets X, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and as you get down, it's like I've paid £190 to turn up to my match, whatever it might be. I've come in 20th place, I get 20 quid. That's paid for the meal I had the night before, something like that. Then nobody's like staring at that price. I want that, I want this, I want that. And somebody got something random and I've been passed over. And I think that's where prize tables don't quite work so well as having a proper prize structure in place.
Yeah,
that's my only gripe with prize.
100%. I once had someone say to me, hey, I had a great match at such and such. And I won something on table. It was brilliant. What was it? And they told me, and I went, oh, that's great. I'm thinking, what's he going to use that for? And he admitted to me that he didn't know what it was until the day after, when he got home and Googled it. He thought it did something else, and he was dead happy. And then he got back and he was like, "I have no use for this whatsoever," but it looked good. I'm with you. Again, this is a whole. The bigger picture is if you're putting money into a sport in whatever way you're putting it in, the question I ask is that do it responsibly so that you can actually say this is adding genuine value.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, brilliant. I'll buy you a beer. We'll be friends forever. But I think unfortunately, the top of the pyramid is starting to take a funny shape. And those people in the middle that you say, they're the people that are progressing to get towards the elite level of shooting, are scratching their heads. We're seeing a lot of people coming away from centre fire shooting now because of the cost. Some significant people, in my book, people who I've worked with for years shooting centre fire competitions are now seeing it as very expensive. And with the growth of 2-2, the financial dividend comes down in terms of price tables because you ain't going to win tens of thousands of pounds worth of money at a 2-2 event. You might win something, but it's that's intrinsically there. And in a world where people are struggling to afford to buy or source ammunition, I think as a responsible business, I think perhaps a reality check of if you're adding value and what we're doing. Anyway, I digress.
Attendance levels are increasing at centre fire.
Good, brilliant.
But
with new people coming through, which is great.
Some of the people that were committed to it are drifting away. It's just that you've got a churn going on at the moment.
You'll never be short of people that'll turn up for an event to shoot. Yeah. Those people coming into sport is great. It's a natural thing. New people follow a sport. When you starting to lose people of talent from a certain element of it. So if someone that previously shot centre fire to a high level is now saying, "I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to go just do rim fire." And I speak to these people that they're not shooting as much centre fire down to a number of things: genuine cost, genuine all those sorts of things. Another podcast completely about what I think the UK precision rifle shooting footprint looks like and what I think it'll look like in 5 years. We're 5 years on now from 2019 Precision Rifle League, and I remember because I sponsored it. That was the only show in town then. We're 5 years on from that. In another 5 years, where will we be? Yeah. Unless you're thinking with those sorts of parameters, I think you're being a little bit short. Well, you're being short-sighted. I could say it's not a little bit short-sighted. If you're not thinking long-term, you're being short-sighted.
Yeah. There's that many competitions now for 2-2 and that many for centre fire that what we're going to... I was having a good chat with a number of shooters about this at the weekend at the GBPRA World Championships qualifier. And quite a number of people agree with this. I think what we're going to see is people specialising. I think you're going to have people that will just shoot 2-2 and some that will just shoot centre fire. You're already starting to see that now. Some people are starting to make a decision which discipline they want to sit in. In America, the team that goes and shoots the 2-2 worlds will be completely different.
Absolutely.
The centre fire worlds.
It's go-karts and F1. I always like to find a nice comparison. It's stock cars. It's Formula 3000, Formula 1000,
rugby union and rugby league.
It's the things that can coexist entirely separately, but historically, certainly in this country, have coexisted, and that people will go from 2-2 one weekend to 6-5 the other weekend. But I'm seeing people now saying to me, I've had people contact me saying I'm hanging up my centre fire gun. I'm building a 2-2 instead. I'm going that way. Anyway, another podcast altogether. In my list, because I've done infinitely more research for today than you have, just saying, I've done everything on my list. I think. Yeah, I've done everything. Performance pyramid, grassroots. I've said winningest far too many times. Looking at the clock, we're an hour and a half, longest podcast ever.
Yeah, it has been a long one. It's been a good
one.
It's
been good. And for all those people out there, and the feedback we've had from these podcasts, I'm not going to lie, it's been amazing. I've had random people sending messages saying, "Love your podcast. I was thinking about getting into sport, and now I am. Keep doing what you're doing." We've got lots more podcasts to come. Next week, I don't know where you are, whether you're available or not. Rob Ramsden, former IPRF chairman, apparently, he's coming to speak to us
Is chairman
about.
not president?
I don't know. You said
Marcus
chairman.
calls himself president. I don't know.
I just think, in essence, he's dead clever. He gets it. He understands it. He talks even more than me, so I'm gonna have to do well to keep a lid on him. But he's got a lot of interesting things to say about what I see as genuine factors in making a sport successful. Sorry, mate, go on.
And one thing about Rob is he's very genuine in terms of what he wants to see for the sport, and it's not for altruistic, it's not for personal reasons or anything.
And we ain't going to get too political with it. We're going to talk about the theoretical structures of successful sporting entities and what we think that people should do to be successful in that area.
Rob's heart's in the right place when it comes to these topics, isn't it?
Yeah. And then the following week, we've got some UK manufacturers coming. So in episode 5, Rob Ramsden that did stuff for the IPRF, still does stuff, I don't know what he does. And then the following one, episode 6, is going to be some UK manufacturers, because I think we need to support UK manufacturers more.
I agree. Can we name them?
Say again?
Should we name them?
Can we? I mean, what I say is, if you're a UK manufacturer and you want to get in on that podcast, give me a shout. At the moment, we've got 2 people coming. We'll name, why not? The very handsome, with a fantastic head of hair, Dean Scott from Celtic Precision is going to be joining us. And I'm hoping he knows about that. Have you told him? I've told him.
I haven't said anything to him.
Someone's told him. And Derek Cottis from RNF Sporting official title, who makes a very good UK, well, as far as I'm aware, the only UK precision rifle chassis. And it's fantastic. I've been using it for
manufactured.
Yeah, UK manufacturer. Who supports Dean, and it works really well. So
Dean's won competitions with that chassis. Yeah.
I mean, I'm out on the side of a hill most days doing stuff, and I use them to a great extent. It's a great success, should I say? They're a great bit of kit. But anyway, I won't. But if you're another UK manufacturer, that's because it's happened that way. If you're a UK manufacturer and you want to get in on that, come and join us. Yeah. We'll get you online and we'll have a chat about stuff. And then beyond that, we've got loads on the list, but anything can change between now and then. Been a good podcast, mate. I've enjoyed it. We've been meaning to do this for a while.
Yeah. You know what I've just noticed?
Say again?
You know what I've just noticed?
What?
I need to reset my clock.
Is it 9:30?
I haven't changed it for the summertime. I'll get right onto that when we're finished.
Yeah, Christian's in France or something like that now. Yeah, good stuff, mate. As always, thanks for coming. Everyone out there in podcast land, thank you for bearing with us. Hopefully, you get what I'm prattling about, and you see what message we're trying to put out there to the shoots in the UK. To everyone that's listening, thanks for your time. For everyone that's we've killed an hour and a half for them on the drive to work, you're very welcome. And to Alex White, who I have to mention every podcast, stay sexy. You like that? You thought I was going to forget then. Christian, have you final word? You like saying the final word? Go on, mate. You're really good at it.
No, all done. It was a good debate, mate. I feel like this one was a debate tonight. I think we were coming at it from different angles.
It was a very healthy discussion. Yeah, I agree entirely. Yeah,
and obviously our listeners all have their own viewpoints on it, and maybe it's something that you haven't really given much thought to some of these topics, and maybe we've sparked an interest in these topics now and get you thinking about them.
And if you've got any views, drop them in the comments on YouTube's or whatever Christian's going to do with it. Drop us a line, let us know what you think. Feedback is important. We do these podcasts for you to try and explain some things and dispel some myths. So we are your vessels. Use as you see fit. Thanks again for everyone listening. Christian, thanks for coming. It's been a cracker. Stay safe.
Be good to one another. Good night.
He said. Thanks, folks.